doing life. It's the experience we all hold dear. It's reflected in our communities. It's reflected in our people. It's the one thing that unites us all, family and friends. Together, we all have something to share.
Welcome back to another episode of Something to Share. Today we are going to talk about worship. We have worship pastor Javi LeVoid with us today. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yes. All right. So we're going to get right into it.
Let's do it.
Tell us, what does worship mean to you?
Worship is a lifestyle. It's something that you live, right? Mm-hmm. I learned early that worship was much more than the parameter of space that we used to do songs in a worship service, right? Mm-hmm. I used to think worship was that time, right?
Yeah.
And soon discovered that worship was actually all the time that's around that time. And so worship really is a lifestyle. It's something that you live each and every day. Discovered it in Scripture, right? Funny enough. Everything that you do, let it be in word and in deed, let it be unto the Lord, right? And so it's like, okay, everything that we do is worship. Why do we call this weird time a couple times a week worship when it's bigger than that? And so I really believe it is a lifestyle.
So I know that you've been, raised a musician and you've really done the song performing part of worship for a long time. But I'd love to hear more about how you discovered how it was so much more than just the song.
Yeah, and I think it came from doing the songs. Yeah. Doing the songs and sometimes falling into the trap of performance, Mm-hmm. Performance is not wrong. It's who you're performing to. Yeah. If you're performing to the Lord, if you're giving Him your gifts and your talents, it's different than it becomes an audience performance per se. Mm-hmm. And I think in doing the song, I discovered that sometimes it felt shallow. It felt like, a static 2 or 3 songs and that's it and we're out. Yet there was something that I think always pulled me deeper into what it could have been. And so in a personal journey, I discovered that it was just different. And it was, oddly enough, in the broken places in my life or in the struggles of my life, it seemed that was the place where authentic worship poured out of me more. Yes. And it awakened my eyes to what a true worshiper Christ was looking for, right?
Yes. So even though I've never led worship, I obviously, sit in the church and worship. And I can tell you that when I'm in a place where I'm really leaning into the Lord, I'm really in a season of just drawing near to Him, worship has so much meaning and power.
Yeah.
Yet as a worship leader, how do you lead worship if you're not in that place?
Yeah. I mean, think about this, we're taught in society to rally around our strengths, right? In worship, you rally around your weakness. Mm-hmm. It is in your weakness that you're made strong, right? And so I think particularly in the church world, we think that these people are perfect. They got everything under control. And I'm telling you, I would beg to differ. I would tell you, just like what you said, it is in those places of intense need for God that the most authentic worship pours out of people. Not just the leaders, the musicians, the production team, the people who are in the room. And there's just something authentic when we express our need for God in an authentic and in a pure way. I think that's what true worship is.
I love that you shared that. In our weakness, He is strong. That sounds like what it's like to lead people in worship. Because again, it's not about performing for man. It's about leading people directly to the Lord. That's
absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Now, one thing I've often wondered, as someone that's never led worship, what is it like to be on that stage leading worship and to look out and to see others in pure worship for the Lord?
Yeah. I use the word addicting. And it has a context. It's addicting to be in that space because I believe that in the moment where we're worshiping God together and there's a crowd, there's a congregation, and we're all focused, one heart, one mind, we're getting a glimpse of heaven. And, it's the place that I long to be. It's the place that it's going to be my forever space where I get to encounter God's presence, I've always believed we've been given eternity because it's going to take eternity for us to discover depth and the width and the breadth of God, you know. 1,000,000 years of being in heaven, God's going to show us something we've never seen before in our life. And it will take another 1,000,000 years for us to realize how holy he is. It's just that awe, I believe, is really that space where that true worship is formed. And so in that congregational space, we get a glimpse of that. We get a taste of that. And it is addicting. You don't want to disconnect from it. You don't want to leave, you know. I'm a preacher too, but trust me, I would rather be singing for 2 or 3 hours than to get to a preaching or to a sermon, you know, because that is the one thing we'll get to do forever.
That's a beautiful image. Thank you for sharing that. So then I want to ask, what was it like to then, during COVID, to be there and to lead worship to a camera when there was no one actually in the building? Was that difficult?
At first, yes. You have to be honest. It was very difficult because there is something about the congregation. There is something about that handoff between people, and you feed off of it. But here's where that authentic lifestyle of worship really flows from is if you're performing to an audience of one. If it's just God and you, it really shouldn't matter who's in the room. And so I can tell you that even here for me at the ministry and at my church, when it was just me, a couple of production guys and a camera, first couple of times was a little hard. I had to make some adjustments in my heart and had to make some adjustments of how I worshiped and how I performed to really come and be authentic with it, you know. And I think particularly in COVID, what helped me was, okay, there's nobody here in the room, but there's 700 plus people who are going to watch this later or are on camera watching me right now, you know, and I want to be able to pour out the love of Jesus and the hope and the strength that comes from our faith in Jesus through worship as authentic as I can.
Yeah. Now, Javi, you shared early on that worship is more than a song. It's a lifestyle. Can you give us just a couple tips of how to really live a life of worship for the Lord?
Yeah. And it is lifestyle, you know, a style of life. Break down the word, right? How do you live each and every day? And so worship is a lifestyle. Therefore, it should always be you. It should always be authentic to who you are, you know. If you're rambunctious, worship rambunctiously. If you're a quiet person, worship quietly. It's that authenticity between you and God, you know. Find a place where you can just be yourself and worship God there. You know, for me, it's a car. I always laugh, you know. I live good distance away from the ministry, and so that 35-minute car ride is my sanctuary. It's in that place that I spend time with the Lord, and sometimes the radio's full blast, sometimes the radio's completely off and not a word is being said. Still worshiping in that place before. So you got to be authentic to yourself because God's watching.
Great. Thank you for sharing your heart. We all have different experiences, and we all have unique points of view. But the one thing we all have in common is we all have something to share. I want to encourage you to share your life experiences with us. You can go to Medi-Share.com and share your story. Hope to see you next time on Something to Share.
We've all been given gifts by God. Do you know what yours are? Here's a practical way to find out what they may be. Don't miss out on your spiritual gifting and how to put them into practice. Download your spiritual gifts worksheet now.